So I am going to start recording this. So it will be recorded for future reference, and we'll send this out to you along with the slides so you guys can have that. But we will start sharing our screen now. So please, if you guys can't see the PowerPoint, let us know, but it should be available up there, and I will put it in presentation mode. Great.
Okay. It is now 12 noon.
Yep. So I think we're going to get started. I know some people will probably still be joining us in a few minutes, but I'd like to keep on schedule here. So like I just said at the beginning, if you guys just joined us, please use the chat function in the webinar to ask any questions. We'll be answering them at the end of the webinar. Daniel has a few questions that you guys submitted during your registration as well, so he's prepared to answer those. We will be recording this, so if you guys have any follow-up or you forgot something, we'll be sending that out to everybody that RSVP'd, and then it'll be in our weekly update for those that weren't able to make it today. So really quick, I just wanted to, first of all, thank you all for joining us. We've been working a lot on trying to provide more education for everybody, and so this is one of our ways to do that. We're tapping into our allied trade partners that have a lot more expertise than I do myself, and so
or at least experience.
At least experience. And so we wanted to have Birko come today and talk about this topic. Seems like there's quite a bit of interest for it, so hopefully this will be a good discussion. So I'm going to hand it over to Dana. Dana Johnson's our speaker. He's with Birko, obviously, and he's been working with Birko since 1995. He's the current past president of the MBAA District Rocky Mountain, and he has authored numerous articles for the New Brewer and has been homebrewing since 1989. Hopefully you guys all know Dana. He's out and about at a lot of breweries, so I imagine you know a lot of these people.
And club fests and so forth.
And festivals and everything like that. So we really appreciate him here. I will be moderating the questions at the end, but besides that, I'm going to turn it over to him. If you cannot hear him at any point, or his voice is too loud, please let us know.
Yeah. So, you know, there's a lot of adrenaline kicking in right now because, anyway, I'd like to thank Colorado Brewers Guild for having me and Birko for allowing me to come down and kind of letting me teach you about cleaning with caustic and hydrogen peroxide, especially for the Brewhouse. Brewhouse cleaning is one that a lot of people you know, kind of struggle with because at the end of the CIP, if you don't have a good spray nozzle, it's difficult to get all the soil off. So we found that this, you know, combination of combining alkalinity and hydrogen peroxide, we've done it for a very long time, but I'll be going into why and how it works and try to answer your questions on that because it is a little bit new and different for us. So I guess with that, we'll take it away. And thanks for showing up. Down here, okay. All right, so as I said, this is going to be a review of the brewery cleaning and sanitation process, especially on CIP. What is CIP? Clean in place. So most of you are doing that. You're hooking up your pump. You have a reservoir. You're recirculating the cleaning solution. If you're not used to that, for people that might be joining us that don't know what CIP is, the easiest way that I teach about it is that it's very similar to an automatic dishwasher in your home. Everybody pretty much familiar with that. You know, you try to load the glasses and dishes and silverware in a way that they get hit with the spray. And then you have the cleaner in there and then it gets rinsed and you don't have to do a lot of hand scrubbing. So that's basically my definition of clean in place. And in the brewing industry, it's typically done with sodium hydroxide. So if I say NaOH, that will mean sodium hydroxide. And if I say KOH, because I will flip back and forth a lot of times between you know, the chemistry terms and saying that. So, and H2O2 is hydrogen peroxide. And the strength that I'm going to be talking about today for hydrogen peroxide is not what you buy in the store. That's, people say, well, I bought a bottle down at the store and I dumped it in there, it didn't do anything. That's 3.5% active, and you need something that's about 10 times stronger than that, and for your cleaning with this for that to work. Then at the end, I'm going to go into the advantages and the disadvantages of using this approach. You've got the touch. Thank you. First, a little bit about Birko. Birko is a 65-year-old company. We've been protecting the food chain for over 3 generations now. We're family-owned, woman-owned, which is pretty cool. And we really specialize in innovative food safety, chemistry, equipment, and technology for food processors, beverage producers. And you can see from this particular slide that our core sectors that we call on are protein and protein harvest, produce, fresh cuts, that's like your bag salads and so forth. Further processing of meats for, you know, pepperoni, lunch meats, that kind of thing. Bacon, we do a lot of that. And then, of course, brewing and distilling is now a major part of our business and one of the fastest growing, thanks to all of you. But nothing is more important to us than making sure that the food chain is safe, secure, and pathogen-free. Pathogen-free brewers, we don't have to worry about that too much, but those are the critters that will make you sick, the organisms. So, okay, looks like you got a slide finger.
I guess so.
So we're still getting used to this. I'm not a Mac guy.
We have 2 screens going on, so
2 screens.
it's a little confusing.
Yeah. For craft brewing, so I've actually been with Birko since '79. I started home brewing in '89, and then in the mid-'90s realized that the craft brewing industry, microbrewers as they were called back then, I saw that as a very viable and growing industry. And quite frankly, at the time, we were losing a lot of our local meatpacking customers. So we started calling on the craft brewing industry in the mid-'90s. And you can see some of our customers. It's just a few on the right side of the screen there. But really proud of the fact that for the second year in a row, we had about 25% of the Great American Beer Festival gold medal winners. That doesn't mean they buy everything from us, certainly, but and I judge at the Great American Beer Festival. So it is, I can tell you one thing, it doesn't matter how good your malt and hops and yeast are, if you don't keep your equipment clean, not only are you not probably going to win medals, you're going to probably struggle to stay in business these days with the amount of competition. So I think sanitation is key. So next slide. When I start talking about pH, I add this slide for all the talks. I have to apologize to the chemists. I'm going to keep this very basic. The pH scale is logarithmic. So moving from one unit to the next is not 1, it's a factor of 10. So as you move in either direction away from pH 7, which is neutral, it's neither acidic nor alkaline, just keep in mind that those are 10-fold increments. And it's a product. So if you're going from, say, from pH 9 to 11, for example, it's not 2, it's 10 times 10. So it's a huge difference. But the other thing that I'd like to talk about is in cleaning. And when I talk about cleaning with caustic, that will be pH over 12. And when I talk about cleaning with acid for this talk, it's going to be a pH under 2. And the reason for that is very few organisms can survive at those pHs. And and if you look at the pH 2 to 5, which some of the sanitizers that I'm seeing out there are in that range, you have to be a little bit careful because lactobacillus, Acetobacter, and Pediococcus, they thrive in that environment. Bacteria, if you're in the pH of 5 to 9, they'll grow just fine, thank you very much, at that pH range. 9 to 12, so the non-caustic cleaning that we do is pH 11. Not a lot going to grow there, but some alkaline organisms can probably survive that. So next slide. In chemistry terms that I'm going to be talking about today, when I give talks at like Regis and the Metro State to the kids at school, I'm not going to go into all of these today, but the classifications of chemistry terms is right there: hydrolysis, dissolution, displacement, dispersion, emulsification, peptizing, and chelation. These are all things we think about when we're formulating specialty cleaners. And today what I'm going to be focusing on is hydrolysis and displacement and dispersion. So what is hydrolysis? Hydrolysis means, by definition, it means attack by water. And it's an extreme pH. We use it both on the, as I said, below pH 2, you'll get some of that, but especially on a pH over 12. We recommend that you keep the pH above 12.5 when using caustic, sodium hydroxide, or potassium hydroxide. And the reason that is that, you know, you want to knock those organisms down, but you also get a lot better cleaning on that. But you do have to be careful on when using caustics on soft metal like brass, copper, aluminum, things like that, because it will dissolve them. And for the purposes of this talk today, normally when I'm talking about caustic cleaning, you want to keep that at a minimum of 0.5 to 1% active sodium hydroxide. If you're on millisiemens, I typically recommend 60 to 80 millisiemens and run it hot. And by hot, I mean you need it at least 140 degrees. You can titrate that with the sodium hydroxide test kit and also just pH test strips. They work fine as well. So oh, perfect, thank you. That'll help. Thanks. Displacement, dispersion. So what is that? That's really what you're doing in that automatic dishwasher that I talked about earlier for CIP. And alkaline non-caustic cleaners, you know, that we've sold for since the mid-90s, they take advantage of that by, you're not trying to dissolve the soil like you do with hydrolysis, where you're, you know, really going after that with real high pH. We're just getting that off the metal, off the surface, and then hopefully keeping it in solution. That's why you put phosphates in there for the peptizing approach, which is just breaking it down into smaller things that can be held in solution and not hopefully drop back out. This takes advantage of the acid first approach that most of you know that I have been promoting for the last 20 plus years. When we do the acid first, don't rinse it, you drain it, and then go to the alkaline detergent. That's really what we're doing, is trying to get that soil, and soil is just whatever you're trying to remove from the surface. The new thing about adding hydrogen peroxide to caustic for us within the last few years, that needs to be in the range of 1,500 to 3,000 parts per million. So that's 0.15 to 0.3%. If you like percent, keep in mind that 1% is 10,000 parts per million. So when we talk about 0.1%, we're talking about 1,000 parts per million. Amino acids. As we all know, amino acids are the building blocks of protein. And in beer, they're not real soluble. pH 4.5, which tends to be why you have beer stone, and there's a diagram of calcium oxalate there, so you can tell it's pretty, pretty robust, and that's why when it builds up to a point where it feels like sandpaper, you really got your work cut out for you. But in this particular graph, what it's showing you, as you move away from pH 4.5 in either direction, but especially on the alkaline side, you can really start to solubilize those amino acids. But caustic by itself will not do it. So let's get into the conventional caustic CIP. So The tried and true approach that I learned about when I got into the industry and what everybody was doing works just fine, typically, right? You rinse out the product, with ambient warm water, CIP with your caustic blend, then you rinse it, then you come back with an acid, and then you rinse that. So nothing wrong with this, and that's usually what's taught in schools. Not my school, but everybody else's school. So this mash tun CIP that I'm going to show you here was a caustic wash, 3% as supplied, I think, and a caustic additive that had a lot of surfactants and chelation in it. A caustic rinse where they were recycling what the caustic they could, and then coming back with a 3% as supplied nitric phosphorus for 20 minutes. So it was 40 minutes on the caustic and then 20 minutes on the acid. So there's a picture of the mash tun before, and as you can tell, that's a heated surface down there, and as we all know from home cooking stuff on the stove, when you've got grains like that, they like to stick to the surface. So you got to use some, got to have some surfactants, detergents to help, assist moving that. So there's the after. It looks pretty good, but I want you to kind of notice the rings are around the. To me, that's not quite as clean as I would have liked, and you can see a little bit of soil that's still remaining. This thing had a really good spray nozzle, so it's not bad, and it was totally acceptable at the time. But I'm going to show you something better. But before I do that, I need to kind of get back to this acid first, followed by non-caustic cleaning that we did. There is hydrogen peroxide in our non-caustic cleaner. It's a heck of a lot safer, and I'm still promoting this. I'm not saying that if this is working for you, by golly, just keep doing it, because it's got a real tried and true track record now, and I've made a career of trying to get people off of caustic when possible, especially for small brewers. That picture was taken at Breckenridge down on Lake Street when they were brewing down there on a 15-barrel system. And everybody knows where Breckenridge is these days. But that's really where we, kind of got started about that time. And especially if you've got a kettle that looks like this is just my buddy Jim Jacobson's homebrew system, and he doesn't really have the protein deposit as much as that's beer stone right there. Direct fire kettle, and it's also got copper in it. So again, we don't want to use caustic on that because it'll probably eat the copper on there. So if you've got copper or this kind of thing in your system, I'd recommend going the acid followed by non-caustic. And there it is afterwards. So that was the nitric phosphorus followed by draining, no rinsing, and of course he's hand scrubbing that, but looked pretty good. Not only does that look good, but it's also passivated as well. I'm currently writing an article for the New Brewer. Look for it this summer on passivation. I will be touching on this. Why use an oxygen additive? You get better soil and wetting penetration compared to using caustic alone. Caustic is really good at making soap, and that's called saponification. So what it's doing is it's hydrolyzing that fat and turning it into another compound. So you're creating soap. But in protein, especially with the malt, we've got protein. We don't have a lot of fats. We're dealing more with protein. So the caustic by itself does not really work all that well on that. So, and especially on that binding thing that you get with beer stone and with mash tun, we all know the bottom of the mash tun screen, that soil likes to stick. Even running pretty hot caustic by itself just is not all that effective. So in this particular case, when we're running caustic with hydrogen peroxide, we found that 160 to 180 degrees is optimal. And that's because of those, you think about the bubbles in there, you want it pretty hot. And especially in brewhouse cleaning, it's pretty easy generally to get up to that temperature. If you're using a chlorinated caustic, we always say to keep it below 140. And so I want to make it real clear that this is just for the oxygen and caustic approach. approach. But the real benefit of it, even with stationary spray nozzles and not a great, pump maybe, it oftentimes eliminates the get in and hand scrub after cleaning. I know there's a lot of us out there that have had to do that, and this will take care of that. So how does it work? This will be the only time I use the ones that I prefer to use for this on the Birko line is Circulate and Peroxide. Circulate is our best heavy-duty CIP cleaner. Caustic, a lot of you are using it. Peroxide, it's our 34% stabilized hydrogen peroxide. So we rinse out, do a hot water rinse, 2 ounces per gallon of the Circulate. That's about a half gallon per barrel of water, 64 ounces. So about 2 liters in a barrel. Then you mix that well, and you got to absolutely make sure that these concentrates do not come in contact with the other. They can and will react, and it's not a good thing when that happens. So you want to make sure that your caustic is in the water, mix it well, and then add 1 ounce of perox per gallon of the above solution, and then you want to do that right before you turn on the pump. And run the pump for 30 minutes, and if it drops down from 160 to 180, don't worry about it as long as you're, because the thing about this is it's really quick. We say 15 to 30 minutes, and that's for really heavily soiled, but you may be able to cut your time back from that if you've got really good spray nozzles and that spin. So it doesn't take very long. Then you want to drain and rinse with hot water immediately. Don't let it dry on, and it'll leave, what alkaline cleaners do, they leave a white mess if you let them dry. So then you can run 1 ounce of either acid bright or alternator following that with, which is the nitric, phosphoric nitric or nitric phosphoric. And now on that, we always say keep it below 140. Why? You want to keep your nitric in solution. And that's also kind of what people consider a passivating acid approach, so you're getting some passivation with that as well. And then rinse with the same degree temperature of water that you're doing your acid clean with. It's just better for the metal not to slam it with real cold water that we get in the winter out here. But like I said, no hand scrubbing. So here's some proof of the pudding. This particular CIP was done at a brewery out in San Diego recently over the winter. It's a premier stainless 30-barrel brewhouse, and you can see what we're talking about with the protein that is attached itself to the metal. And so that was doing that exact CIP process that I talked about before, and leaves a beautiful shine. And not that you need to do this every time, but think about it. When you're having what we call the dog and pony show, you've got people coming in on tours, and they're, maybe you're holding a party and you want people to look in and see your kettle. I think that's what you want it to look like. And they didn't, they really were impressed with that. So not only did it cut their time, we cut their chemical usage. So it's better for the bottom line, but I think the results speak for themselves. So that's pretty much, I want to just kind of briefly touch on, a lot of people say, well, I don't want to have a bunch of chemicals around. Also works for fermenter cleaning as well. And especially if you're using Biofine, or I think the other one from CMG is that they sell is Nalco 1072. Those are silica dioxide binding agents. They do not respond to acid. In fact, it looks like a beer stone deposit, but if you're trying to clean Biofine or Nalco 1072 with acid, you're really making it hard on yourself. You want to use this approach in the fermenter because the best way to pull silicate deposits is with caustic. So in that case, you want to get as much of the CO2 out of the fermenter as possible, and maybe run a sacrificial caustic loop, just before you run the real clean caustic. You got to run hot. If you've got a Biofine deposit, I recommend like 1 to 5. And by that, I mean 1 gallon of cleaner to 5 gallons of water at 160 to 180. And so that's if they're really bad ones. But then when you get off, you know, you always want to clean those with a alkaline approach first. So if you're doing that in the bright tank, you know, I don't recommend, you know, doing the acid and detergent thing that I'm also known for. Also really good for cleaning kegs. The key here is you do need to do have an air compressor, again, to blow out as much of the CO2 and beer and yeast. It's been working really good though on these unfiltered beers, again with the Biofine and Alco 1072 approach, and cleaning with that, so you can do it there as well. And so, kind of getting to the end of this, my part of the this part of the presentation. What are some of the advantages of using caustic and hydrogen peroxide together in the same solution? As I said, it saves time. Had a brewer up in Maine say that it was going to shave 45 minutes off of his day when he had to do a Brewhouse CIP. He said, I've got summer coming up and I don't really want to be in the brewery, and I darn sure don't want to climb in at the end and have to hand scrub like we have been. So he tried it and he really liked it. He was very thankful. Shorter CIP times. Again, I've heard some people that don't use this approach running like over an hour for their alkaline approach on a kettle. I mean, that's crazy. So you reduce your chemical usage, energy usage, give you you know, more time to go out and have fun. People get into brewing to what? Brew? Yeah. What do they end up doing? Clean. So the main thing on this is let's spend more time brewing and less time cleaning, and enjoy life. As I said, it's even with maybe not the greatest you know, spray nozzle, it really does eliminate having to get in there. Now, hydrogen peroxide is relatively inexpensive. And I'll get into the difference on the difference between hydrogen peroxide and peracetic acid. Yes, you can use peracetic acid, but it's really expensive. And it also reduces the amount of active alkalinity that you need to have. You know, we've been doing this approach with pH 11 for decades now. So I don't recommend going that low with caustic, but it definitely works really well. And it doesn't seem to harm the metal as much as chlorinated caustic can. There's a lot of things about stress corrosion cracking with chlorinated caustic, so if you're using that, be careful. Disadvantages to this approach: caustic and hydrogen peroxide concentrates can and will react violently, even in solution if they're not mixed well. So do not combine them as concentrates. Make sure that doesn't happen. You want to make sure that that caustic is in solution first, mixed well, and then add your hydrogen peroxide right before you turn on the pump. And you get about a half an hour out of it. And, you know, it's, again, not stable. Hydrogen peroxide and peracetic acid are in an acid because that's how they're stable. You put them in alkaline, and they're not going to be stable. And the non-caustic alkaline cleaners that percarbonate, the main thing that helps the non-caustic cleaners work well is that's hydrogen peroxide entrained in sodium carbonate, which is also known as soda ash. And that's how they would, when you put it in water, it releases the hydrogen peroxide. So this is there is an extra step. You know, we cannot ship caustic with hydrogen peroxide in it. It's not happening. And you got to remember to add it. So if they don't add it, you're not going to get the cleaning out of it. It can possibly, on some of the metal that I've been seeing coming over these days, the cheaper grades of stainless steel, it could possibly increase the potential for rust formation around the welds if you're not passivating. If you need some help on passivating, again, stay tuned for the article I'm writing for the new brewer. Just contact me and I'll walk you through that, or just go to our website and read the articles. There's tons of them on there that we've written on passivating metal. But bottom line, at the end of the day, let's make your workday shorter. That could be a problem if you're getting paid by the hour, but I don't think people really want to spend a lot of time cleaning. I think you want to have, go out and have some beer with your customers and have fun and be safe. So, and along those lines, I mean, cleaning is the least glamorous and potentially most dangerous aspect of working in the brewery. And, so you always want to remember to use proper PPE, know and respect the chemicals you use. I mean, we're all guilty of it. Make sure you use your eye protection. Hydrogen peroxide and paracetic acid can blind you in 30 seconds if you do not have your safety glasses on. Make sure you have an eye wash around so you don't get the spills on you. If you get hydrogen peroxide at this strength on your skin, it'll turn it bright white, and it hurts like heck. So make sure you use good gloves, chemical-resistant gloves. Know where your safety data sheets are located and understand that. I'll be giving a presentation at the MBA Rocky Mountain District Technical Summit on this on Saturday, May 19th. So if you haven't signed up for that, please do so. But anyway, let's work harder. I mean, let's not work harder. Let's work smarter. And if you need some help, with this on recommendations for your system, feel free to email me or call me. And so at this point, I did want to kind of go into a couple of questions that we received as we were leading up to this. They were all really good questions. Can this technique be used with a regular old-fashioned spray ball or hose or foaming water gun? So let's add that one first. Regular spray nozzles, yeah. The stainless steel sphere with the holes drilled in it seems to work just fine, as long as they're not plugged. That's all about contact. Through a hose, probably not. Again, you don't want to combine the concentrates, so you can't have a hose and sprayer and probably combine those and then dilute it down. It's probably not going to work that well. You can hand scrub with this if you're careful. And then the water gun, definitely not. Do not use it for that. Uses for keg washing, yes. As I said, that works. It's been working great there as well. The other question here is, can PAA, paracetic acid, also be used? And it says, can you compare the performance and pricing using PAA versus H2O2 with caustic or alkaline cleaner? Great question. Yes, you can use paracetic acid. The problem is they're a lot more expensive, especially if you have a EPA registered sanitizer. It is an approved use for that as a non-chlorinated oxygen booster for caustic cleaning. But I just did the math last night. It's not worth the extra money. You're going to have to use the same amount of using paracetic acid, and it's 3 times more expensive than using hydrogen peroxide. So my recommendation is stick with hydrogen peroxide. Again, probably 34% is what's out there the most commonly. What kind of spray ball do you recommend for this CIP of the mash and or kettle to properly remove the soil? Brands, gallons per minute, pressure. As I indicated in my talk, spinning or rotating nozzles are best, and they can really save you a lot of even more time and more chemical reduction. If you have the proper CIP pump and nozzle. A good source, and this just came up yesterday with a customer, and a really good source to kind of fit the right spray nozzle with your tank and the volumes and pressures that it needs. If you go to www.lechlerusa.com, LECHLER, USA.com, click on their products, go to spray nozzles, and then they've got a whole list of spray nozzles, especially for small brewers. Another guy that's really good, Mark Murphy, down in the Houston area, really good friend of mine. He's helped us out at Birko. CDB Projects as his company. For larger breweries with bigger tanks, I would recommend him. And he's very knowledgeable. He's the one that says, "Show me your CIP pump." And people will drag out their work pump. He says, "No, that's your work pump." So be prepared that if you're having cleaning problems, that sometimes it's not just the chemical. There could be other issues there as well. And then another one that came in just today was, the question was, my former chemical provider indicated there was more than just oxidizer in their oxidizer additive. Is this true, and would they help? The answer to that is yes and no. First of all, yes, all hydrogen peroxide and peracetic acid compounds are formulated with a stabilizer in them, usually some kind of chelate or acid that will, especially when you're dealing with hydrogen peroxide, one thing that will really degrade them is iron. So they usually put some kind of chelate in there to make sure that if there's any trace iron in there, that it won't react. But that's strictly to make the concentrate more stable over the course of its life. Once you get them into cleaning, there's really no benefit there, and there's such a small amount. They're typically just, a few thousand, maybe part per million in the formulation. So they're not really designed to. And if somebody says their hydrogen peroxide is way better than anybody else's, I challenge them on that, because they're all pretty much made the same. And when you're dealing with the strength and so forth. So do we have some other questions?
We do. We have a handful of questions. So I'm going to read them out loud so that they're recorded for this webinar for future reference. There was a question of, can you use this through your heat exchanger? You explained it about kegs.
Oh yeah, great point. Yeah, and I've been I neglected to say that, but this is the best way, especially if you've got hops in your heat exchanger. This approach is working really well. In fact, I think with the that bubbling effect of the hydrogen peroxide in there, and you think about all the nooks and crannies in a heat exchanger, works wonderful there. And again, just make sure your pH is at least 12.5. And again, that hydrogen peroxide, when you're doing the actual cleaning, it's only going to be good for about a half an hour. A lot of people like packing their heat exchanger. That's fine, because it's going to go away anyway. So
okay.
Yeah, it works good there.
Great. Next question. How does it work with whey loss?
Weybos, same thing. Yeah, we just Weybos is a less expensive. It has than the preferred one that I recommended was Circulate, which is our heavy duty one, and it is really takes a lot less caustic. With that one, we use it as low as 1 to 100. With Weybos, it's more around 45 to 50% sodium hydroxide. So it's a cheaper product, but you have again more caustic there, but not as many goodies. But especially for calandria cleaning, if you have calandrias, I wouldn't recommend Weybos for that one, because it doesn't have the goodies in there that Circulate does. Fermenters, fine. And things where things are not baked on, probably like centrifuge, another one that I didn't really talk about, works really good for centrifuge cleaning as well. And Weybos is a good one there for fermenters and that type of thing.
Okay, next question. And also, before I start reading this one, if you guys do have questions, please type them in the chat box and we'll just keep reading them as we go.
Yep.
So the next one was about compatibility with gaskets, and there's a few examples here. Do you want to talk about each one of these examples?
Yeah, Una, okay. Yeah, Una, EPDM, Vicon. So EPDM is not too bad. Vicon's really good. Una is, so Una doesn't like oxidizers, especially hydrogen peroxide. So that one is the worst one. Definitely I would probably go to Viton, and EPDM is not too bad. I think it holds up fairly well. Teflon is another one that responds very well to this approach. But yeah, you may maybe another potential disadvantage, maybe if you're using unit. It's one and done. They're not going to last.
Okay. Next question. For sanitary cleaning, this would not replace PAA, correct?
That is true. So the Birko approach and our what we always preach to our customers is cleaning and sanitizing are two separate steps. And so you can't sanitize a dirty surface, number one. So you always want to make sure that you're cleaning that piece of equipment and getting it nice and clean. And the sanitizing step that you still want to do with PAA, and I still recommend that, especially on the hot side for heat exchangers, work bay, fermenters, all of that. Yeah, absolutely. You still want to use your PAA sanitizer for that.
Okay. Next question. Should we be concerned with wastewater, BOD, COD, pH, TSS with respect to treatment facility requirements?
No, this does not change that. You know, wrote an article for the new brewer on wastewater. The main thing that you want to do is do some pre-treatment, even if you're not getting checked. The EPA rule on that is you want to make sure that your pH is typically between 6 and 10, somewhere there. Check your local wastewater regs. But it's not going to change anything with the BOD. You know, the BOD, you would think, well, I'm using hydrogen peroxide. But again, by the time it reaches the city, it's going to be long gone. COD doesn't change any of that. TSS, you know, some of these things may go up compared to normal because you're getting your equipment clean. So maybe another possible downside. But I really don't think that, you know, the wastewater thing is going to be impacted at all by this over your normal. And you may be using less chemical, which, again, another positive. Not for me, but for you.
Great. Well, so far, those are all the questions. I'm going to give it just another 2 minutes in case people have further questions and they're trying to chat them in. Like I said, we recorded this, so we'll be sending this out. You guys all have Dana's contact information, so you can always follow up with him if you have any other specific questions that you think about later. But we hope this was really helpful for you guys. I wanted to put a plug in for our next webinar that'll be on trademark infringement and trademark law. It'll be next Wednesday. And that will go out RSVPs in our weekly updates. So if you guys are interested in that, definitely jump on that. I know it's totally different than this, but that's our next topic. So with that, if you guys don't have any other questions, I think we will close up the webinar. Do you have anything else you want to add?
No, I want to thank you all for attending this. And again, feel free to reach out to me. I think you can see it on the slide here. The number of Birko is 303-289-1090. That's the local number. And my email address is djohnson@birkocorp.com. And feel free to, you know, let's start a conversation and let's make your life easier so you can have some, sell more beer and have some fun.
Great.
So thanks, everybody.
Thank you, guys.